Hey guys, it's Jen. Welcome back to my channel. So today's video is going to be a review and swatches of the new BH Cosmetics travel collection. So in this collection there are two eyeshadow palettes and also a face palette. So I'm going to show you guys some swatches, talk a little bit about the formula, and show you how I got this look today using some of these palettes. So why don't we go ahead and just get started. Alright, so first up, why don't we go ahead and talk about these eyeshadow palettes. I'll start with Hangin In Hawaii. This one, on the description, it says, capture the essence of a tropical paradise with the Hangin In Hawaii 16 color shadow palette. This lush mix of richly pigmented hues and finishes, ranging from high shine bronzes and golds to buttery soft mattes in melon and spice shades, offers endless radiant looks for day and night. So inside you are getting, like they said, 16 shades in matte and shimmer finishes, and this is overall, I would say, a very neutral palette. It's mostly browns with just a couple of melon and pink shades in there. And I remember when BH Cosmetics launched this a few weeks ago and they were showing photos on their Instagram page, so many people, like when I was reading the comments, there were so many that basically were upset because the palette on the inside did not look like it does on the outside. They were hoping that a Hawaii palette would look a little bit more tropical. They were thinking it was going to be a bright, bold palette. And it really is just a very neutral palette at the end of the day. So if you have a lot of palettes in your collection already, I'm guessing you probably have all of these shades, maybe not exactly in one palette, but I know for sure that I have a lot of these shades, if not all of them, throughout various palettes in my collection. So you may not necessarily want to grab this one if you already have a ton of palettes and you have a lot of neutral palettes already, but if you don't and you're just getting into makeup and you don't have a lot of palettes in your collection, I think this is a really, really nice, easy neutral palette to work with. I think the formula is really great, which I'll get into in a second, and also it has a nice mix of both warmer and cool tones. You have so many different variations of brown in here, and you also have these softer pink and melon colors, which I feel like are easy pops of color to use. It's nothing too bright or bold or dramatic, so if you're not used to working with color as well, I think this is a great way to experiment with that a little bit. So why don't we go ahead now and get into some swatches. First I'll do some live swatches of both the matte and shimmer shades, and then I'll show you some swatches of the entire palette altogether. So this palette has 5 shimmer shades. First is Hula, then Luau, and Pineapple. And then the last two are Sandy and Waikiki. And then there are 11 matte shades. First one is Shaka. Then we have Hibiscus and Ohana. And then next we have Lei, Aloha, and Tiki. And then Coconut, Paradise, and Maui. And then the last two are Mahalo and Honolulu. So as you can see from the swatches, I think this is a really nice palette, especially for the price. I feel like you're getting nice pigmentation as well as a really soft, buttery formula. The only small drawback would be that it has a little bit of fallout, but I have worn this palette already several times and I haven't noticed anything dropping onto my cheeks, especially if I just tap my brush off before I go to apply the shades. And also I think that the formula is very consistent throughout this palette as well. The shimmer shades all feel the same and the matte shades all feel the same. So there's not a million different textures or finishes going on in here, which I really, really like as well. So if you're in need of a neutral palette, or you're not, but you just love neutral palettes, I think this is a really nice option. However, I would recommend this one if you want something just a little bit different. This is the Love in London palette, and the description of this one says, discover the allure of city chic looks with our Love in London 16 color shadow palette, a sophisticated mix of rich neutrals and gleaming metallics to dazzle and define the eyes. In velvety matte and brilliant shimmer finishes, each pigment infused shade delivers vivid color payoff and blends beautifully for chic effects that captivate like the city lights. So this is what this one looks like inside, and this really does does not look like any palettes that I have in my collection. I have a huge collection, but I was trying to think of if this could dupe anything, and I couldn't really come up with anything. I just absolutely love this mix of shades right here. It does have a mix of warm and cool tones, but I would say that this one leans a little bit more cool than warm. There are a few warm shades in here, like this one, Queen, this gold right here. There's also this warm brown down here, and there's also a warm coppery bronze shimmer, but you also have these really beautiful cool blues and purples and silvers. And you also have really beautiful cool toned transition shades in here, like this light dusty pink or this light gray. It's just such a stunning palette. So I am wearing this on my eyes today. I'm gonna show you how I got this look, but first I'll go ahead and just show you some swatches really quick, and I'll do it the same way I did the other one with some live swatches first, and then I'll show you them all at the end. So first let's start with the shimmer shades. There are 9 of them all together. So first we have Cheeky, Tea, and Palace. Then we have Queen, London, and Lolly. And then last we have Biscuit, Prestige, and Duchess. As you can see, these are a little bit crumbly with a little bit of fallout, but otherwise very, very buttery and soft and nicely pigmented. And then there are 7 matte shades. The first one is Big Ben. The next one is Cheers. And then this one is Scone. Next up we have Lovely, Piccadilly, and Crumpet. And then the last matte shade is Posh. So overall, I think that these are really, really pigmented as well. They do, again, have a little bit of crumbly fallout similar to the shimmer shades, but all of the matte shades, even the deeper ones, feel very velvety and soft. They're not dry or scratchy at all. So now that you've seen swatches of both palettes, I'm going to go ahead and show you how I got this look today using the Love in London palette. So the first shade that I used in my crease is the shade Scone. This is that really pale, cool toned, like dove gray color, and on the skin it does lean a little bit pink, so I was surprised at that when I was applying it to my eyes. It looks very grayish in the pan, but on me, at least on my skin tone, it looked a little bit more of like a pinkish gray, but that was totally fine. It still worked out for the look. And then the next shade I was dying to use from this palette is the shade Tea. It was that really rich, beautiful, steely gray shimmer shade. It is so gorgeous. It applied beautifully with my flat shader brush. I did not have to use my fingers. I didn't have to wet the brush. It just went on so intensely. Again, it did have a little bit of fallout when I picked it up, but I just tapped off the excess and I was good to go. And then with my finger, I picked up the shade Palace, which is the most gorgeous silvery shimmer shade. It's beautiful, and I just patted that right onto the center of my lid. I usually like to put a lighter color just in the middle to help my eyes pop a little bit since I do have hooded eyes. And then I finished off the look with the Mascara Revolution mascara from Makeup Revolution. And I just love the finished look that this gave. It's a little bit colorful, but still really wearable. I love that steely gray so much because it's a little bit understated. Even though it is a blue shade, it leans a little bit more toward gray. So I feel like it could almost be a neutral, like a gray or a brown alternative. So I really, really love this shade a lot. And I know I'm gonna get a ton of use out of this palette. I've already tried many different looks with it, including some just basic brown looks. I've also used like these rose gold shades in here that are stunning, and these purples. It's just such a versatile palette. Like I said, you can really get some beautiful either warm tone or cool tone looks out of it. So I highly recommend checking this one out. I think it's a really unique palette. And then last but not least is the face palette called Blushing in Bali. And this one says, achieve a sun-kissed complexion inspired by exotic islands with our Blushing in Bali 6-color blush and highlighter palette. In silky matte and shimmer finishes, each richly pigmented hue sweeps on seamlessly to create a natural flush to the cheeks and face. Wear these flattering blendable blushes and highlighters alone or layer for endless radiant effects. So inside you are getting, as it said on the back, 3 blushes and 3 highlighters. And these blushes all have just the faintest hint of shimmer to them. Nothing too extreme at all. And really, when you look at the pan, they almost look like they could be mattes. I would say this deepest shade has the most shimmer, while these two, it's extremely subtle. It's almost more of like a satiny finish, but as I was applying them, I just noticed that my cheeks had the slightest hint of glow, but it was nothing that is going to accentuate any kind of texture on your cheeks. I do have pores right here, and I didn't feel like these enhanced those at all. You also get 3 highlighter shades. You have one really pale one here, then you have a beautiful sort of mid-tone gold, and then a deeper bronze highlight. But even though I know I will not be using this shade as a highlighter, I feel like it would make an absolutely beautiful bronze eyeshadow. So why don't we go ahead and look at some swatches first, and then we'll come back and I will show you how I got this look on my cheeks today. So first for the blushes, we have Lychee, Coral, and Pomegranate. And for the highlighters, we have Glisten, Sunkissed, and Ember. Okay, so now that you've seen swatches, you've seen how incredibly pigmented these are. So with that being said, you do need to use a light hand with this palette. I would say with maybe the exception of this blush right here, which I am wearing today, and I'll show you me applying that in a second. But with this one, I don't feel like I'm in danger of overdoing it. But with these other two, I would say absolutely. And really, I tend to stick more toward just these 4 shades right here. This one is pretty dark on me no matter how I try to sheer it out. And again, I'm not gonna really use this as a highlight on my cheeks as well. The Coral shade, I do just have to be a little bit careful with it because of how much pigment is in here. It can get into clown cheek territory really, really easily. So today I'm wearing the shade Lychee, and this is a stunning pink. It looks so pale in the palette, but when you go to apply it to your cheeks, it actually surprised me with how well it showed up. So if you're fair, it's a beautiful shade, but again, just keep in mind it is pigmented. You do have to blend it out a little bit. It's not one of those more buildable blushes. So I just wanted to warn you about that. If you're any fairer than I am, you really have to be careful with this palette, and you may only be able to use this shade right here because the other two do start to get a little bit more bold. And then for my highlight, I'm wearing the shade Glisten. These highlighters are incredible. I'm sure you noticed that in the swatches. They are fantastic if you want that super glowy, see it from outer space kind of highlight. If you're into more subtle highlights, you probably will not like these because they really pack a punch. You hardly have to dip your brush into the palette to get incredible color payoffs. So I did try to sheer this out as much as I possibly could. I'm not a fan of that sort of like bright stripe of highlighter that some people wear, but overall I think it just gives a really stunning glow to the cheeks. But again, just be careful with it. I think as a good rule of thumb, if you're not into super pigmented face products, you may want to skip this one. All right, so those are my thoughts on the new BH Cosmetics travel palettes. I hope you guys enjoyed this video and found it helpful. If you did, don't forget to hit the thumbs up button. Also, please don't forget to subscribe to my channel. I do reviews all throughout the week and then hauls every Sunday. Also, let me know down in the comments below what you thought of these palettes. Are you planning to pick one up? Have you gotten them already? I would love to chat with you guys. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye.